Hi and welcome to Sidewalk Talk. I'm Steve Fortunato, founder of Shovel the Sidewalk. We're a marketing firm in Buffalo, New York. We utilize authentic storytelling to help small businesses build brands and create advertising. It's all about connecting people to brands and people behind the brands. Thus, now we have Sidewalk Talk, where we're also connecting people in Western New York with others. And we're really excited today to have Michael Komm from Leon Komm and Son Monument Company as our guest. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve.
Thanks for being here. Michael understood we were doing a podcast, didn't realize we were going to be videotaping it for YouTube.
Right.
And he's very upset about his bad hair day.
Yeah, it wasn't a good haircut last week.
Yeah, so it's okay though. You're going to make it?
We'll do our best.
All
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So, Michael, first I want to tell you, your parents are the nicest people in the world. I interviewed your sister last week at Cross Point Dentistry.
Right.
And
nice
yep, Dr. Kelly was telling me, we were brought up a certain way. That's why she's so good at customer service. It really is. Your parents are just, Leon and Cindy are really good people.
Thank you.
Do you think that they have affected? They probably didn't tell you how to treat people. Is it just something you grew up watching?
Well, yeah, I grew up in the business. I've been in some form or another involved since I was about 5 or 6. So you learn from an example, and there's no question that seeing how my father and my mom treated customers on a routine basis, taught me how to do the same. And I always tell people that I'm going to give you the best quality work possible, but more than anything, I'm going to give you the best service that you're going to find anywhere. I treat people the way I want to be treated, and I treat people the way that my family has been known for treating our customers. So
yeah, it's known as the Komm legacy. You're the 4th generation.
Right.
So take us back. There's Dad Leon, then Parker.
Yeah. So the company was founded in the 30s after the Depression, or during the Depression, really, by my great-grandfather Leon, who was an immigrant, came to America by himself, and
at age. 11 or 12.
Yeah,
or 13.
11 or 12.
Didn't speak English?
No, spoke a little bit, but not much. Yeah, not much, and really came by himself. Brought family back with him later.
He came from?
Now it would probably be considered the Ukraine, but came over and learned the trade for himself as really at the time the only, and currently today we are still the only Jewish monument company in Buffalo, although we service all faiths and all traditions, and we have for some time. He really started off as the only Jewish monument company in Buffalo. So it started with my great-grandfather, moved to my grandfather Parker, who passed away just this last year. Yeah. And my father came back to the company in the 70s. Although, like me, he started in the firm when he was just a little kid. And then I came back to the company about 9-10 years ago now. And
so what's the pressure like for you to carry on this legacy, which is a really...
Yeah,
well,
family firms are difficult to come by, especially in their 4th generation. So there's some pressure there's no question. But more than anything, the pressure is just that you always want to be growing and doing things just a little bit better than you always did, or doing different types of work that maybe you weren't always doing. So the pressure is really just to keep the firm progressing. That's the pressure. But as far as pressure from the family and whatnot, that's not really there.
Why did you decide to? You have 2 sisters. They're not in the family business. Why did you decide to keep the tradition going in the family business?
There's a lot of art to this industry. There's a lot more art to this industry than people generally think of when they first decide that they need our services. And so, from that standpoint, I was always a very artistic kid. I was always drawing, I was always painting, and being around the studio and seeing how our artists worked, that was something that naturally lended itself towards me. And I went to school for architecture, and that's what I was doing before I came back to the company. So I have a lot of background that made this work a good fit.
You talk about, you're an artisan, right?
Right.
we call you a fourth generation artisan. You bring up a good point. People don't think of it as art. And we'll get into the art part in, I think, a second. I really want to focus on, I mean, not a lot of people would choose this as a profession.
Right.
It's got to be.
A lot of people wouldn't think to choose it.
Well,
you know.
but also the emotional side of it. It's got to be difficult dealing with families when they have a loss.
Oh, there's no question. There's always those families that, you know, they really get to you. But we always try to bring it back to the art, and we also try to ground ourselves in the fact that, you know, we're on the end of the funeral process where we kind of provide closure, we provide comfort, and we're the last step. And so our job shouldn't be based on emotion. It should be easing. It should be the time when the family finally has some kind of a closure to their mourning. Hopefully, you know, it may not be entirely based off of what we do, but our work should at least start that process of kind of ending the mourning process. So, you know, me personally, I always just try to bring the art out into it. You know, that helps me kind of get past the really sad element to all of this. Yeah.
So I never thought of it that way. So someone is burying a loved one. Yeah, so they deal with the cemetery and the funeral home.
And that all happens as soon as they lost their loved one. So emotions are raw, and, you know, sometimes they're not thinking straight, or they're just very emotional, as they should be. But the monument tends to happen further down along the road. It's not at the immediate need in a lot of cases. So the emotion has a chance to kind of, you know, work itself out of the equation by the time they get to the point of working with us.
So by the time they work, because a lot of times, if it's winter time, what happens?
I mean, we work year round, but a lot of our work has to stop because of weather. So a lot of, we stop doing installation as soon as the snow starts falling. So like we're not installing anymore. And then we pick up once the weather really improves. So it's usually April or May. But having said that, we're working with families year round. You know, people are always coming in to have us design a monument for them. We carve year round. It's just the installation the cemetery has to wait.
Are there, I'm sure there's big differences from when your great-grandfather started to now, but what about the last 10, 15 years? Has there been a lot of changes in the business?
Yeah, I think any business will probably tell you that there's been a lot of changes. On our end, there's been changes on the entire process, all the way up to, you know, consumer demand. A lot of our work now is still done by hand, but we have a lot of tools that make the job easier, you know, more streamlined, I should say. So we were one of the first companies in the area to go to an all computer design-based system. So when families come in, we design right in front of them on the computer, and they leave with, you know, in some cases, an exact illustration of what the memorial is going to look like, or at least maybe, you know, 85, 90%. And those fine details we work out over time and whatnot. But our process starts on the computer, and it ends with that same computer file cutting the stencil that ultimately gets applied by hand onto the stone and then carved by hand. But that artistry on the computer is a big change, because everything used to always be hand drawn, and we still do that when we need to. In fact, I really like working by hand, but you know, the advantage of the computer system is that families get an immediate illustration of what it is they're selecting. So there's no walking out and not knowing exactly what it is you chose. You leave knowing exactly how it's going to look. You know?
Yeah, I remember talking to your dad a while back, and one of the things he discussed, I don't remember what it's called, but a sketch. He's like, a lot of what we do here at Leon Komm, you don't go to school to learn it. It's passed down from generation.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, there's no school, and that's actually, you know, when getting back to your previous question about people not necessarily thinking to do this kind of work, there's no schools for it. So when people are going through high school and college and they're trying to decide where their talents best best lay. There's no one saying, well, maybe you should be thinking about the memorial industry. You know, and the fact that there are no schools means that it's up to us to kind of pass on those talents and craftsmanship internally. You know, no one's going to come knocking at your door and saying, "Oh, I've done this for 20 years or I've done this for 10 years. Here's my portfolio." And that has a whole nother set of challenges associated with it that we have to deal with routinely. But the good thing is that then we're able to train people on how to do their work the way we know we want it done. You know, we don't have to deal with bad habits.
Yeah, people talk about Komm artisans and craftsmen, but if there's no where are you? Okay, I understand
schools.
you train them, you train and teach them the Komm way, and some of them have been here a long time.
Yeah.
Where do you find these people?
It's tough. In the past, sometimes they found us. You know, we had someone who worked for us for many years, really talented, just recently retired. He found us because he came in for a memorial for his mom. And we got to talking. He had an artistic background, and he liked working with his hands. And so one thing led to another, and he trained and worked with us for many years. But there, when I look for somebody to bring on board, it's really all based on unknowns. And the only thing I can usually ascertain is if they're hardworking, if they seem to be honest, if they're trainable, if they're willing to learn. Because not everybody is open-minded enough to really want to learn. They may say they want to, but when it gets time to actually getting in and getting dirty, they don't always like taking instruction. So I like to just try and find people that have those basic, good skill sets: honesty, hardworking, diligent, timely, that type of thing.
But
and the rest I can teach.
But don't they have to have some kind of artistic?
Oh, and there's no question.
Right. So someone that's watching, maybe they have. Maybe they have an artistic background or a liking for art, or a relative does. Or someone says, what about like a graphic designer in college? Would that be someone that you would be interested in?
As long as they understand that there's a jump between graphic design and carving monuments. There's that. Just because you can draw it doesn't always mean that it can be carved. And as long as they don't mind working hard physically, because that's part of the job. It's a physical job. It's hard work.
Why?
You're dealing with a lack of a better word, kind of a brutal medium. I mean, stones are heavy. We have a lot of equipment in the shop to make it easier to lift them, but it's not like painting on an easel. Where you can just take the painting and flip it around and rotate it how you need to that day. Stones are, they're more complicated just by mass. But also the process by which we carve is pretty laborsome. I mean, we use sandblast or we use hand chiseling. All of those things require a certain amount of, physical endurance and physical ability. Now, no one has to be a heavy weightlifter or anything like that to do it. But you do have to realize that it's not necessarily an office job. There may be days where you're drawing something on the computer, but there's going to be a lot more days where you're in the shop laying out by hand or carving by hand, and that's something that maybe not everybody is open to nowadays. But there's still a lot of people that really like working with their hands, so it's a good fit.
So tell me, I mean, when you people think it's a gravestone, right? That's the term that people allow to use it. But you're really, again, from conversation from years past with your dad, it's a monument, which is to help preserve, right?
The memory of that person.
Distinguish and honor that person, right? Is that what it's about?
Monuments are just as much about the person who they're carved for as they are for those who we leave behind that are going to come visit that memorial. So, when we carve a monument, it should be about the person, no question about it. Nowadays, we have all kinds of ways to really personalize it and make it that much more unique from everything else around it. But at the same time, I always tell families that this monument isn't just about the person who it's for. It's also about all their relatives. It's about everybody who's going to go and see it and how they want to remember that person. So yeah, it comes back to that honor and preserve and distinguish. All three of those words, okay, they all go towards our basic function here. You're honoring the person who the memorial is for, you're preserving their memory, but you're distinguishing their lives at the same time. And we like to do that in a way that also incorporates the relatives who are still here. You know, they're the ones who are, in many cases, who are selecting what that memorial is like, what it looks like, the material it's made out of. So they're putting their own touches on it, you know. And that all those things, when they go back every week or every year or whenever, how often they go back to see it, they're going to go back and it should be something that they're proud of. And that pride, you know, flows into the memory that they have of that person.
A lot of people would say, I'm sure you get it, you know, you're dealing with death here.
Yeah.
It's a tough gig, but there must be gratification.
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, I don't see how you could do this.
Yeah, I mean, the gratification is, you know, we get calls all the time, we get letters, people comment on how appreciative they were of our service, how timely we were, but more importantly, the pride comes into how much people like what we've done for them. You know, there just aren't too many lines of work where you get that kind of feedback routinely, and it is really rewarding, you know, to know that first of all you have the gratification of actually seeing your work done, and secondly, you get the gratification of knowing that families are happy with what you did and that you made a difference. Because for a lot of people, it's a really dark time, and I come back to the point that what we do is that culmination. You know, for the monument, it tends to be the culmination of someone's mourning period, and it's either marking the end of their grieving or it's marking the beginning of them ending their grieving. And so when the product is actually done and it's out in the cemetery, for them to have a good feeling about it, in some cases it may be the first good feeling they've had about that, you know, that situation, that the loss of their loved one since the person passed away. So that's it's special.
It's really serious stuff.
It is. Yeah, it is. It is.
Right.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
All right, so talk about family business. My clock is out, so I don't know where we are on time, but where are we at? What does that mean?
3 minutes.
3 minutes what? Left?
So 20.
Okay. This guy. I want to talk about family business.
Yeah.
What is that? You know, how? I know we talked about pressures a little bit, but it seems like, and maybe in your industry it's different. You know, in a lot of industries, the small business, the family business, just doesn't seem to be around anymore.
Yeah. You know, in the mining business, I think you find where there are quite a few small businesses still there, but they are slowly on their way out, and because it's all based on the next generation wanting to do it. You know, you can't force somebody into this line of work, or really, in my opinion, you can't force somebody into any line of work. They have to really want to do it, especially this, though, because it takes the right person and it takes the right mentality to want to do this every day. It's hard work.
This is also small business, historic. Is this the same spot that your great grandfather?
Yep. We're in we have 3 buildings that are all connected now. The original building my great-grandfather built in the 30s is right next to us. That's our office. But we're sitting in the larger studio that was put on in the 80s.
In the 80s?
Yeah, 1983.
And so, what's the future for Leon Komm and Son Monument Company?
I mean, I think the future is that you're going to see, hopefully, us doing more public space work. We did a really great project for the zoo a few years ago. We've done a few projects for the zoo now. We've done quite a few civic memorials, fireman memorials, things like that. But I think that you're going to see us, hopefully, doing more of that public space artwork. Because our skill set is one that really, I think, transfers to all kinds of applications. We saw that with the zoo, where we weren't carving into granite, we were carving into concrete walls, but it's really the same process. And it used our entire staff to do it. You know, so a lot of talent coming together to get it done. And it also, you know, it's makes things more interesting for us. But that's what I hope that you see more of.
Is the zoo, was it the polar bear?
Yeah, the polar bear, the Arctic exhibit. I'm sorry, I can't think of the official title of it now, but when they built on the Arctic exhibit, which housed like 5 or 6 different animals, one of which was the polar bears. They had the Arctic wolves, and they had created all new exhibits, all new buildings, and they asked us to come back and carve these abstract images of each animal that they were housing at the zoo now on the side of the building. So they're like 20 or, I think they're like 20 by maybe 10 or 12 feet tall murals on the side of the buildings that we carved.
It's interesting because people think, okay, it's, when we talked about monuments and after people are going through a tough time, but it's not just that.
Right.
There are so many other opportunities which in business, I don't think I wouldn't think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you know what every next generation in any family company has to be doing is thinking about what else they can do. You know, not to leave behind the work that got them to where they were. I mean, that we will always be primarily a monument company serving families in need, but we all have skill sets that can adapt us to other industries or other mediums, you know, and we're fortunate that we have some really talented people who can make that kind of work possible for us. Yeah.
So we'll wrap up here. I just want to catch up. You grew up here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But you're a St. Joe's boy. How does that work out? You're Jewish, but you got Italian in you too,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So where's the Italian come from?
Well, actually, the vast majority of my family is Italian. The vast majority of my family is Italian. My mom's entire side is Italian. A little Hungarian, like everybody in America nowadays. We're kind of a hodgepodge, melting pot. But yeah, went to St. Joe's, graduated in 2001. Very proud that I was part of the collegiate. And then I left for a while. Went to school in Indiana, got my degree from Bloomington, and then I was back in Buffalo for not quite a year, and I started graduate school in Syracuse. And then moved from Syracuse, where I got a graduate degree and master's degree in landscape architecture. I moved to Saratoga Springs and worked there for a few years.
At what?
Design firm. Okay. Yeah, design firm out there.
What they design?
They were multidisciplinary. So we had civil engineering, civil engineering, landscape architecture, and planning all in one house. And there were 5 distinct studios. They all kind of dealt with a different realm of design. But I worked in the commercial private development group. So I did a lot of development work, multi-use buildings, and we would kind of take clients from the original planning phase all the way through the municipal approval process into construction.
And have you been able to leverage what you learned there?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that especially my work in graduate school, when it came to just design in general, and the tools, CAD and 3D modeling and whatnot, that is all, I employ those skills every day. Every day, yeah.
All right. Well, if somebody is in a situation where they're planning ahead, need a monument, or if it's another situation but they need a monument in some capacity, what's the best way to reach?
Oh, call the studio anytime, 893-2500. You can email me, which is michael@leoncomm, KOMM.com, and we'll take care of whatever it is we can do for you.
Thanks for being a guest.
Thanks for having
Michael Komm, Leon Komm and Son Monument Company. Been here 4 generations now.
90
You've
years.
got 2 little ones.
Yep. 2 and 4.
Could be 5
Recently 4.
generations. Recently 4. So we got
Thanksgiving.
You got Thanksgiving was 4 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. All right. So you've got about at least 20 years. You got to keep this thing going for
exactly.
All right. So
no pressure.
Yeah. That's it for this edition of Sidewalk Talk. Before we go, I want to thank our sponsor, Vandalay Industries, George and his team out there. Without them, we couldn't.
Latex.
Yeah, we couldn't. We couldn't get this done. So, thanks for watching this episode of Sidewalk Talk. Until next time.